You've probably heard that history is told by that of the victors before. And we all get that there's probably a lot of left out of history, but we primarily assume that it's merely just a perspective, that we just never hear the loser's side of the story. But essentially, the events we all were taught about did happen, minus probably a few omissions here and there to make the victors seem more glorified and good. But what if it went deeper than that? What if it was the opposite? What if most of what we are told about history was a lie? A lie told by the survivors, and yes, victors. But a lie to wipe out any mention of a once vast civilization, a civilization that shaped the society we know of today. If we take a moment and think about history for a moment, and we wonder, what if everything we were told was a lie? Imagine a world where a vast and powerful empire once ruled over most of Eurasia, with advanced technology and a culture that rivaled or surpassed the West. Imagine that this empire was mysteriously wiped out by a cataclysmic event, leaving behind only scattered traces of its glorious past. Imagine that the survivors of this empire were either assimilated or enslaved by the victors, who rewrote history to erase their existence. This is the premise of the Tartaria theory, a theory that claims that a civilization called Tartari, or Tartarian Empire, was the true origin of many architectural wonders and cultural achievements that attributed to other nations or peoples. According to this theory, Tartary was a multi-ethnic and multi-religious empire that spanned from Central Asia to North America, and had a sophisticated system of free energy, airships, and other inventions that were later suppressed or stolen by the enemies of Tartary. The theory also suggests that Tartary was destroyed by a series of mud floods that buried its cities and monuments, and that the remnants of Tartary can still be seen in some places, such as the star forts, the domes, and the spires that adorn many buildings around the world. The mud flood theory. Some researchers have uncovered historical photos that show large and largely uninhabited cities from all over the world. And they show them not being built by those of our recent past, but rather it looks as if they are being dug out of layers and layers of mud. These pictures show very impressive architecture for the time, architecture that is common in capital buildings, but it also shows railroads and, at times, seemingly advanced technology, all either before they should have existed or being dug out of layers of mud that show these buildings and technology may have been here before our more modern times suggest. This theory suggests that whatever event this was, this mud flood, happened all over the world at the same time, and did so in the very recent past. Recent enough that there are black and white photographs documenting some of this. After this event, the ruling class decided to rewrite the history and decided they would cover up or destroy what was left of the previous civilization. There were great fires that burned down entire cities, like the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. It propagated a great rebuilding where they could construct a new urban center. The fire in total burned an area of 4 miles long and 1 mile wide, destroying 17,500 buildings and 73 miles of street. In this, the ruling class could build order out of chaos. One idea of this mud flood being a worldwide event was that it wasn't a flood of mud at all, but a worldwide earthquake event that shook the world so violently it caused a soil liquefaction event, burying buildings and partial buildings in the dirt. Now, we do know that earthquakes can cause these types of effects on the soil. According to the Tartaria theory, Tartary's technology was based on harnessing the natural energy of the Earth and the cosmos using various devices and structures that were designed to resonate with certain frequencies and vibrations. Some of the alleged examples of Tartary's technology are free energy. Tartaria was said to have a system of free energy that did not rely on fossil fuels or electricity, but rather on tapping into the ether, or the atmospheric electricity that surrounds the Earth. This energy was transmitted wirelessly through the air using towers, antennas, obelisks, and other structures that were connected to a global grid. Some of these structures are still standing today, such as the Eiffel Tower, the Washington Monument, and the Taj Mahal. Airships. Tartaria was said to have a fleet of airships that could fly across the world using free energy and advanced propulsion systems. These airships were made of wood, metal, or fabric and had various shapes and sizes. Some of them resembled balloons, zeppelins, or flying saucers. Some of them were armed with cannons or lasers. Some of them were used for transportation, exploration, or warfare. Pipe organs. Tartaria was said to have a musical culture that used pipe organs to harmonize and heal the population through sound waves, what is now known as cymatics. Pipe organs were installed in churches, cathedrals, palaces, and power stations, and were tuned to specific frequencies that matched the natural rhythms of the earth and the human body. Pipe organs were also used to communicate with other realms or dimensions. Domes and spires. Tartaria was said to have a distinctive architectural style that featured domes and spires on many buildings. These domes and spires were not merely decorative, but functional. They served as capacitors, resonators, antennae, or amplifiers for the free energy system. They also served as symbols of Tartaria's spiritual and cultural identity. Now, many of these domes appear to be the heart of the architectural theory of the lost civilization of Tartaria, where it is proposed that these domes appear all over the world, and because of this, show one culture that has spanned the globe. This theory goes deeper and claims, in many cases, that this culture was ancient, so ancient that Tartaria is claimed to be the lost survivors of Atlantis, who went around the world giving civilization to different parts of the world, and is one of the reasons that there are such similarities in architecture, dress, and myths in these different parts of the world. Now, you may be wondering, as I did, how did this mighty empire get defeated, in order for the new ruling class to take over and erase it from history? Well, there are three main events that spelled certain doom for Tartaria. Napoleon's invasion. Some believe that Napoleon's 1812 invasion of Russia was an attack on the Empire of Tartaria, and that he was trying to conquer and destroy its civilization. However, he faced a harsh winter and fierce resistance from the Tartarians and their allies, and had to retreat with heavy losses. Then, of course, the Great Mud Flood. Some believe that the cataclysmic event, possibly caused by a comet or a volcanic eruption, triggered a series of mud floods that buried the Tartarian cities and monuments, and wiped out most of its population. The survivors were either enslaved or assimilated by the victors, who erased Tartaria from history and claimed its achievements as their own. World Wars I and II. Some believe that the World Wars were orchestrated by the enemies of Tartaria, who used them as excuses to wipe out the rest of Tartaria. This ties in with many historic buildings being destroyed, especially during the Second World War. Some also believe that nuclear weapons were used to obliterate some of the Tartarian sites. Now, of course, the reasons for Tartaria to be attacked and erased, which are usually buried deep in these videos, articles, and books about Tartaria, center around possible religious regions, claiming that Tartaria was very liberal with its religions, and claiming no central or main religion in the vast empire. It also goes on to talk about race, and, well, since race is an issue I don't want to get into on YouTube, you can start to see why this theory raises a few eyebrows to many looking in from the outside. And of course, the last theory to the reason is economic competition, which is, of course, usually why nations go to war. Now, is any of this true? Well, yes and no. A lot of these videos are extremely compelling because they show a lot of maps and old photos that really help add some validity to their theory, one of them being maps of Tartar or Tartaria. There really was a Tartar, and well, it was basically Russia and Mongolia. Theorists claim that this name was erased, but it wasn't. It was commonly referred to of that region before the World Wars. Much like Prussia isn't talked about or referred to anymore, Neither is Tartar because there isn't a lot of relevance to anything connected to us today. Were buildings and cities covered in a mud flood? Well, yes and no. Some actually were. Seattle, Washington, for example, had a giant mud flood that buried some of the old downtown core. I took a tour of these underground streets and storefronts years ago. I'm actually not sure if they still offer these tours, but these types of things are real. There are really some streets and storefronts that were buried, and it is a very surreal experience to visit them. But if they were erased, then how did I get to tour these underground streets and stores? And as for the previous technology seemingly to exist, well, I can't exactly say what this could be, except that what's in the photos are either not of the time they're claimed to be, or that they're decorations or something else other than free electricity or some other exotic technology. Also, there are people still alive who were around or had relatives around the time of this supposed Tartaria downfall. They would still have told stories about this supposed worldwide empire, not to mention the narrative gets all tricky with things when Napoleon rose to power and attacked Tartaria. But Tartaria was a worldwide empire. It doesn't make a lot of sense in that regard. Now, while this is a fun rabbit hole to go down and to suspend one's disbelief for a while, there isn't really much there outside of some old photos and maps. And I think it confuses and muddies the waters about the possible history that has been left out or changed, and the possibilities of an ancient civilization that spanned the globe prior to what we know of. By bringing it into the very recent past, it loses a lot of its wonder and possible truth, for there's too much real people who lived or had relatives who lived who have never brought up such a world in the supposedly conflicted world history we've been taught. Now, I'm not saying history has played out exactly the way we were taught, quite the contrary. And I applaud the theory for making people curious, but like so many other stories and theories out there, they get carried away with their own lore and become, well, honestly, their own real-life alternate reality game. Okay, now it's time for you to tell me what you think. Do you think Tartaria was real? Let me know in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out a small channel like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.